So everyone, I think that was definitely my favorite episode of Titans so far. Let's talk about episode 4, Doom Patrol. How's it going, Titans? Welcome to a brand new review for Titans episode 4, Doom Patrol. Now this was just a fantastic episode, and I think, well, a lot of you will be agreeing with me. Obviously, it didn't have a massive bunch to do with like Starfire or freaking Dick Grayson because they were more or less trying to find Rachel throughout the whole episode. But this was really obviously about Rachel and, well, as the title of the episode is called, the Doom Patrol, offering their kind of origins alongside Beastboy's. I was just so happy with this episode for so many reasons. And if anything, it gave us such a good impression for the Doom Patrol series that is to come, I believe, next year. I just felt giddy throughout more or less the whole of this episode. I was laughing very frequently, and I think it's more or less my favorite things in comics, or like definitely that appeals to me, whether it's Marvel or DC. It's kind of those heroes that are more or less kind of outcasts. For example, like the Doom Patrol, as we know, they're kind of the freaks of powers, or heroes, if you will, collected in a team. Then for like Marvel, you have like the Guardians of the Galaxy. You have like Star-Lord, obviously Rocket Raccoon, and then you have a freaking tree, which is Groot. I think you guys know what I mean. It's just, I love those kind of wacky pairings of heroes that form into a team. And I definitely think that my favorite character of this episode, apart from the AC/DC moment with Negative Man, was Cliff Steele, aka Robotman, voiced by Brendan Fraser. Man, he was just so funny. But anyway, guys, before I break down the specifics of this episode, if you want to stay up to date with more Titans videos just like this and other comic book nerdy stuff, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and of course leave a like on this video if you did enjoy this episode. Oh man, I can't wait to start talking about it already. Now, one thing I really applaud this episode on is definitely just how they pulled off the Doom Patrol and how well they did, like, really quick origins. Like, they chucked a few in there, definitely. They focused more on, like, obviously the Beast Boy bit at the very beginning. Chief came along. We know that Beast Boy contracted this rare disease, as Chief put it, and, you know, saved his life. And that's how he started to morph into various different things. And we even learned that the reason why at the minute it's just a tiger in the Titans show is not only that is because it's his favorite thing growing up as an animal, but it's more psychological. So I'm hoping Beast Boy throughout the rest of Titans will be able to learn to morph into other things. Maybe we won't get that this season. Maybe that will be another season thing. Maybe we'll get a tease of that because he is able to literally reorganize his DNA into something else. I know a few of the Doom Patrol members have been recast. I think Elastigirl is the only one going through to the Doom Patrol show. Correct me in the comments down below if I'm wrong about that, but I believe the Chief was Negative Man. Not that you can see Negative Man anyway under all the freaking bandages he's got over himself. But essentially, as a backdoor pilot, if you will, for the Doom Patrol show, you have to agree this was pretty kick-ass. I mean, maybe not all of you agree with me here, but for me at least, I'm hyped to see that show of outcast heroes come to our screens. I really, really can't wait. Now, whether you agree with me not or here as well, I feel like the designs for the costumes were more than acceptable. Like Robotman, I thought was really, really awesome. Obviously, Negative Man doesn't require too much. Elastigirl, the effects on her were actually really, really good. I feel like it was better CGI than what we get traditionally on Beast Boy in the show. Even though Beast Boy in this episode, when he did scare those hunters off, I thought that was actually a pretty cool shot for a daytime scene of CGI. Normally, obviously, he looks a lot better in nighttime scenes. But after Gar, you know, Beast Boy brought Raven back to the Doom Patrol house. I just absolutely loved Robotman when he was like talking to Beast Boy and Raven, and then he was like, "Oh, F me." I know that's such a subtle little remark, and you may think, "Oh, that's not so funny," but it's just those unexpected things in this show that really, really get to me when I heard Brendan Fraser say that line. I know some people were saying in the Hawk and Dove episode that there was maybe a bit too much swearing or F-bombs. For me, I definitely get where people were coming from with that, but I really didn't mind it. I feel like it brought this really, really much grittier approach, real world approach to it. I mean, I know for instance, I do blast around the F-bomb way too much in casual conversation. So if I was like Hawk or like Brendan Fraser's Robotman, I would I would talk like that in an instance like that. So it really felt relatable to me, where a lot of CW shows like Arrow and The Flash and stuff like that can't drop those F-bomb lines or anything like that. Now, I really love Gar and Rachel together. When he bumped into her, going back to that hunter scene, what I loved about this episode in terms of Rachel as well is just how much it was showing her good side, how pure spirited she is despite having that demon dark side to her. I mean, when that deer was shot from the hunters and she was you know, basically crying, and we even got that line from Beastboy saying there's nothing evil or darker or something like that about you. It's true. It's very, very contrasting in the fact that obviously we have Rachel, who's such a lovely, nice girl, with this dark, demonic side in her. But that is when we got this really cool moment when she actually reanimated that deer. Little did she know that she has that ability yet. But later on, we do kind of dive a little bit into that with healing when she healed that person that Chief brought in. But I'll talk about that character a little bit later. Now, I know I have a load of geeky trinkets behind me, but this is absolutely nothing on Beastboy's little pad that he had going up there. Man, does he have it all. I think I spotted like pop vinyls, Ewok, little memorabilia, vintage stuff. It was just fantastic. It was like geek heaven. As for the other Doom Patrol members, because, you know, throughout this episode, as you guys know, Rachel was kind of like wandering around because, you know, Gar brought her back to the home of the Doom Patrol, and she was poking around, very inquisitive and assertive. You know, that's when she bumped into a Negative Man, and as I mentioned earlier, I loved that AC/DC scene. I don't know if you felt like it was a bit of like a Star-Lord kind of moment there, but it seemed to really work with his character anyway. But what I'm trying to get at here is that I really loved how consistently throughout this episode, the show or the episode made you feel empathy for these characters. Despite them being, yes, this kind of superhero team from the comics or whatever, these people suffered horrible accidents, and despite the Chief saving their life, with life came like a curse at the same time. For example, you know, consistently throughout the episode, Brendan Fraser's Robotman, you know, he was talking about how he loved, and this was funny at the same time, but also sad, and that's one thing I loved about this. It made you laugh, but made you feel really sorry for things. Oh man, I loved chicken, or like he was living vicariously through Raven eating her food, you know, and how when he said, oh man, I love to dance, and Raven was just being really compassionate towards the other members. And then we had Elastigirl, who was obviously kind of very depressed. She was like this film star back in her day, and then we found out through her origin, which was shown through Raven's highlighted kind-spiritedness in this episode after she had a vision of her origin, and then she was being tortured and held for years in this place because this toxic gas left her cells unstable, and yet again Chief saved them. Now, the way they depicted Chief in this show, especially with Raven's experimentation or slash procedure that was going on later, is that he has done good for these people, but this guy cares more about his work and the medical science of it all more really than the caringness that it seems that he's giving off. And that couldn't have been demonstrated even further than when Beastboy was trying to get Raven out of that procedure. But as I keep bringing up, one of my other favorite moments or highlights of the episode for me was Tegan Croft's Raven. It was just really, really sweet, and I just really, really enjoyed her bonding with these characters. Because obviously for her, she can really identify with these individual members of the Doom Patrol, because she, I think, deems herself as kind of quite the freak with superpowers, because she's a normal person, just like these other people trying to get on, but with this extraordinary demonic side to her that she doesn't even understand yet. So that's why I really loved those feelsy moments when she was like, don't worry, I'm not scared of you, to Elastigirl. But to be honest, I think Robotman, as my favorite character of the Doom Patrol on Titans, you know, live action, has the worst of it all. Just those moments where we saw Chief talking about the various origins of the different characters, and then you just saw that like shot from Robotman when he was like tapping his fingers on the plate, and just how you can imagine how he can't feel, he can't eat, he can't really touch properly, he can't do things that he used to do, where at least all these other characters, yes, Elastigirl is having her own problems, yes, Negative Man has his own problems, but they can do and still like be actual real things, where Robotman is just a brain inside a freaking robot suit. So, you know, I felt most of all for him, especially that really sad moment on the screen where they really portrayed that the feelings of Robotman, where he was looking at a picture of Brendan Fraser in his racing days, Cliff Steele, and he just was really, really, really sad. And I just love this character, the way he is on screen here, because he was like the most perkiest and the most cracky jokey, but that is often in things like this the most sad kind of person, and I just love how they showed that to us in this episode. Now let's dive further into that moment towards where things are really building up in the episode with Raven and the Chief. But before that, Chief had a stern talk with Beastboy, and I really like this moment because not only that, before on the dinner table, how Chief was talking about how he can help Rachel too, and what he's doing goes beyond what medical science believes to do. But that discussion he was having with Beastboy is like, as I mentioned earlier, he's giving off this kind of, oh, I'm here, I look after you, look at what I do for you, but you know, if you do this, or like you disobey me, or like whatever. And he was playing that really sinister music, or like, you know, not necessarily sinister or menacing, it was more like dark music, giving off that this character, albeit he's got all these Doom Patrol members together, they all live kind of more or less as a family, but there is more to him that you definitely need to keep your eye on, and that definitely got shown when Chief was talking to Rachel. Was just perfect with how he was saying how he thinks he can help Rachel, but it was just so clear that he was dying, absolutely dying to conduct those tests on what he was trying to figure out what ability Rachel had after she had touched Shailene Lau and saved her when he was essentially going to conduct another experiment to save another person, thus also giving us another great example of how a Doom Patrol member is traditionally created by Chief. And Shailene Lau, by the way, is known as Fever in the comics, and she was actually, and she is, we may see her in season 1 of Doom Patrol. They haven't mentioned that though. But anyway, she was also a member of the Doom Patrol at one point in time. Now this is where shit got crazy in the episode, because Rachel agreed to that procedure, but she wanted out, and Beast Boy was just like, look, this isn't right, because Chief wouldn't let her go, because, you know, that drive for medical science that he has definitely trumps his good guy persona. Beast Boy, I really admire, and it just made me love Gar even more. Even though this was typical that this was going to happen, he stood up for Ray, but that is when Beast Boy got tranked, and I thought there and then, okay, well, this is why he's going to leave them probably, because, you know, that is quite a thing. Despite them being his family, this guy who they, you know, is looking after the Doom Patrol and will be in the Doom Patrol series, still leading them, Chief, that is, just literally just disregard him just like that, and this couldn't have shown Chief's problems anymore. Now, this is when Rachel got triggered, the demonic side of her, protecting her. They are one in the same kind of person, except obviously the demonic side of her is much of a darker thing. But this was another cool CGI moment in the episode, and I honestly thought that it was great. Obviously, it was darkly lit, so maybe that helped it out a bit, but this is where I spoke about in my trailer breakdown for this episode. That portal opened, but I love how the Chief got, like, drawn up in the air by Rachel's demonic powers, and then his back was rebroken, so he's going to be very, very kind of bitter about that, and that will obviously lead into the Doom Patrol series with him in a wheelchair. Now, I know I haven't spoken so much about Dick or Starfire this episode. There really wasn't too much to say of them, but what I will say alongside this, you know, Dick Grayson obviously got the information from that hunter about Rachel, and if anything, this scene is as violent as it was, and it gave him a wake-up call, especially when that kid came in, and I think, yeah, as I just said, that will give him another reminder not to be so much of a violent, brutish person to the lengths he's going through when he ever gets in fights like this. It really does show how much he does care about Raven, to the point was like, did you touch her? Did you? What did you do to her? Where is she? Where is Rachel? That famous freaking Batman line. Starfire did know that was pretty bad. Say what you will about Starfire. I know she was pretty brutal to the cops beforehand as well, but in my opinion, she is obviously no way near on Dick Grayson's level. But anyway, they got to the Doom Patrol house. Yet again, loved Tegan Croft's acting in this. A lot of people I've seen saying, oh yeah, Tegan Croft as Raven doesn't really do that great, blah, blah, blah. I disagree completely. That moment when she was crying and Dick Grayson was like saying, I'll never like leave you, I'll protect you and stuff like that. And she was like, I don't want to hurt you, you need to get out of here. It was just really sad, really feelsy. And I feel like only with already 4 episodes in, they've given us enough of their bond together and chemistry on screen to make that really emotional to me. When Dick was just, you know, like hugging her and snapping her out of that like demonic trance that she was in, man, I just loved that, and I just love these two together. And I was really hoping for some kind of little Easter egg or hint with that portal thing being opened by Rachel's demonic side. I believe personally that that is like an open eye to another dimension, potentially where Trigon is or something. I was hoping to see something in that portal, but nothing kind of came out of it. She was kind of screaming into it, so I'm wondering, was this enough of an invitation for Trigon, or was this a little taster of what needs to happen for Trigon to be invited into our world? I'd really love to know your thoughts about that. But the end of this episode, guys, was this like really bittersweet send-off to obviously Gar / Beastboy, because he went with Dick Grayson and Starfire and Raven, and they're gonna form the Titans, and you know how that goes. That's what this show's about. It's just when Robotman was just like, go have a life, and then they were all just like standing there, more or less, you know, completely in line with Robotman. As I mentioned earlier, with how Robotman was kind of living vicariously through Raven, they're kind of doing that with Beastboy, saying, go out there. If anyone out of all of the Doom Patrol members, as was mentioned earlier in this episode as well, could have a life, it's Beastboy. Whereas, you know, you got Elastigirl, who could kind of like melt out at any minute in public. Negative Man, it would be kind of strange seeing him walk around all the time in public with bandages all over his face. And Robotman, well, that's kind of self-explanatory. And then we got that kind of really cool scene at the end. I really appreciated this with the Chief in his wheelchair. And there was the Frank Sinatra music of We Will Meet Again, don't know where, don't know when, or whatever. And I freaking love that song. And it was just so nice. Like, this episode was so good, and just how that music was perfect for that moment. Like, don't know how we're gonna see each other again, Beast Boy, don't know where, don't know when, but we'll meet again. So I know this episode didn't massively, you know, go forward in plot in terms of like the Trigon storyline, or like the nuclear family, and just accelerating that whole getting Rachel's storyline and stuff like that, but it was such an awesome episode. Like, this is the perfect example, and I know it was like that backdoor pilot into Doom Patrol and to introduce those characters, but this was just fantastic. I loved it. I actually don't have any criticisms for it. I want to watch it again. I probably will. I would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. Definitely do if you enjoyed this episode as much as I did as well. Subscribe to the channel for more Titans videos just like this. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you Titans in the next video. Goodbye.